Hey everyone, in this video I wanted to talk with you guys about some ideas and examples for giving feedback effectively in the virtual environment, and specifically looking at how check-in surveys and following up with those surveys can be really effective at creating conversation opportunities for feedback. So first, I just wanted to emphasize that one of the things that I have found most successful in my own classroom is that I need to make check-in surveys a classroom ritual, something that we do often in class, so that the kids get into that habit of completing them, and honesty grows because their trust grows as I ask more questions and get feedback, and make changes in class based on the things that they're saying in those surveys. So they know that I'm reading them, they know that they're going to be asked often what's working, what's not, those sorts of things. So on the screen you can see I've given you kind of an example. On the left is just one of my PowerPoint agendas for the start of class, where I kind of list out everything that we're doing for the day and whatever. But that first thing on the list, the check-in survey, that often happens at either the very beginning or the ending of class once every couple of weeks. You can see over on the right, this is just a screenshot of my Google Drive where I keep all of my surveys for AP Lit. And you can see the reason I put this here is because I wanted you to kind of see the frequency with which I am giving these. I gave one the first week of school, then again the second. I waited a couple weeks to kind of let things settle down. Then weeks 5, week 7, week 9, week 10, and then I'm planning on giving one week 13, which would be this December 1st date that's coming up for me. So I'm making these something that ritualistically happen because I care about what my students are experiencing, and I want to modify my practices based off of that check-in survey data. So when we think about check-in surveys, I use them for a lot of different purposes that allow me to give feedback in different ways. So early in the year, like the first, second week of school, I was asking a lot about, like, with virtual learning and all of this distance learning that we're doing, what do you like? What do you dislike? What's working for you? What's not working for you? What do you wish were different? Whenever we did specific assignments, I would ask them about, like, well, how could this process be better for picking a book? But then I also incorporated in some like community building things. So in week 2, I gave them an option to just ask me any question. It could be school related, but it doesn't have to be. And then we took a few minutes. I just scrolled through their questions and answered them in class to kind of do like a little bit of a getting to know you activity where they got to know me, and we got to talk about things that they were interested in, that they wondered about me. So at the beginning of the year, a lot of the check-in surveys were serving the purpose of assessing what I'm doing and what's working and what's not, and also community building. But it also helped me to start developing a sense of trust with the kids, because they're trusting that I'm reading the surveys and they see that I'm tweaking things about what we're doing in class based off of that. And that is really important in terms of first steps, because that is going to lead into these next examples where we're starting to get more into the feedback side of things. So you'll notice when you look at these, I'm still asking those questions about what is or isn't working effectively, because that's constantly something that I want to continue to tweak to work for them. But I also started asking them social emotional questions about, like, how are they doing? Because this is a really challenging situation. I also, at the end of the quarter, started asking them about how things are going in goal setting relating specifically to my class. One more set of examples then later, after kind of as we get into second quarter, I was asking them again about technological feedback, about how things are working in Schoology, in addition to formative data that helps me plan for instruction later on. Things like, how long are you planning on that test that we just took? What do you feel like you need more practice on? With all of this, because I established this ritual that I'm going to ask you often what would help, what would be beneficial to you, because I'm asking them what's working, what's not, how's your life going, what can I tweak about these things. All of that trust building that I'm doing doesn't necessarily immediately go, oh, she's providing feedback, except that what I do with this data is when I look at it, so this is a spreadsheet from when I asked most recently, hey, how did that test you took in Schoology go? Like, was the technology okay? And as I look through it, you can see I do some color coding here. The yellow things are things that I want to address with the whole class, patterns that I found. Like, a lot of the kids didn't like the size of the text box. For writing an essay, it made it hard. So that's something that I wanted to address a strategy for with the rest of the kids. The kids actually, this green one here, answered this problem for me. So I was able to like give the kids feedback on, hey, I hear that you're having this challenge. Here's a possible solution of what I can do or what you can do to fix it. And setting up that conversational dialogue is what we need so that we can get to ones like this survey, where the kids are starting to get more feedback that is kind of setting up that conversation about how they're doing on things. So you can see on here, I still have some yellow boxes, which are things that I wanted to address with the whole class. I do this kind of like housekeeping thing whenever we need it at the start of class, where we just talk about whatever things are going on that we need to keep house with. But then there's also this orange, and the orange is where the individual feedback follow-up comes in. This is where I'm inviting conversation. So on this survey, I had asked the kids about how they were doing, just like dealing with the pandemic. And there were a lot of kids who, because I have this ritual and this culture of honesty, gave me really honest feedback about how stressed they were. So I was able to shoot little emails. It was generally a stock email, like there was some personalization to it, but it was generally just kind of an invitation of, hey, I'm here if you want to talk, or if I can do anything to help. If you're worried about your workload, like let's get together and come up with some strategies. But I was able to send those individual invitations for conversations, which would lead to feedback. That also has been something that I've done with assignments. Like I'll ask them how an assignment's going for them in a check-in survey, and then based on what they say, I can get back to them individually about what feedback I have on that assignment. So like if a student is struggling to understand, maybe they say that they don't understand what I'm asking for in parts of the rubric or in the assignment, then I'm able to invite them to that one-on-one conversation, which allows me to provide them feedback on their assignment that maybe they turned in and didn't get a good grade on, but it sets up that conversation culture, which then allows me those opportunities to provide feedback to them during Learning Lab or office hours or whatever. And these are some examples of those conversations where like I send like a beginning is kind of generic, but then I go into whatever specific, like, hey, I want to touch base with you about your pacing goal because you're saying that your assignments are taking you way longer than the time that I'm saying they ought to take you. So it sets up this email thread, and it ultimately results in invitation for the student to come to Learning Lab, because now I've created this student's investment in this conversation where I'm trying to help their workload and their well-being, but it's ultimately going to be that we're talking about, in this case, the Othello data sheet. We're going to be looking at his work, and I'm going to be able to provide some feedback about what he's doing well, what he's struggling with, and how he can prioritize his time when he works on those skills to be more efficient and effective. So it gives him some authentic buy-in to that feedback that we're talking about because of how I'm framing it around the thing that he was initially commenting on in his goal. Here's another example where I wanted to touch base with the student because she was really concerned about being overwhelmed with the amount of reading she was having to do, and she was saying that, you know, it's just so much, and she's a slow reader. So we set up a time and we talked during Learning Lab about her reading pace, but a lot of it actually got to the feedback of how she's taking annotations and how she's completing the assignments. So again, it was feedback on those assignments within the framing that was fast versus slow reading, which was really powerful to her in helping her think about how she does these assignments in the future as we move forward. So by setting up the ritual of check-in surveys, we can create spaces of trust and conversation, and then we can use the data from those surveys to follow up on the things that the students are concerned with or worried about but in a way that helps us to provide personalized feedback on the skills that we're trying to provide feedback on. And it's just a really authentic way to kind of set that up. Now, with a lot of students, which we all have, I don't reach out to every student every time, right? We have to prioritize some, but I do try to hit all of the students that have big needs that I see in the survey, or that I can cycle through. You know, I pick 5 sometimes and just respond to those 5, and then kind of blanket statement to the rest of the class, like, hey, if you want to talk about things in your survey, this is the routine to follow, or the protocol to follow for that. So I hope this helps you see how you can take something that's not really directly tied to an assignment necessarily, but use it as an opportunity to create student engagement with the feedback that they need on those assignments.